Opera Philadelphia presents its latest award-winning world premiere, Denny's and Katya, part of Festival O19. The latest, from Philip Venables and Ted Hoffman, the duo behind the renowned 448 Psychosis, Denny's and Katya is based on a real-life tragedy that played out live on social media. This visceral production examines the vast public response to the events surrounding the violent deaths of two teenage runaways and exploring what makes us click in our age of conspiracy theories, fake news, and 24/7 digital connection. Denny's and Katya at Festival O19, September 18th through 29th in Philadelphia. Tickets at operaphila.org.
In part one of our coverage of O19 Festival, Chuck Sachs talks with conductor Gary Thor Wedow, Mezzo-Soprano Daniela Mack, and tenor Alek Shrader about the production of Semele, and then with Jonathan Johnson and Wendy Bryn Harmer about the production of The Love for Three Oranges. Hello, everyone. How are you doing today?
Hi. Hello. Great.
This production is a return for all three of you to Opera Philadelphia. What is it that makes you want to work here?
I think it's such a great opera company. The idea of a festival is exciting. I love walking down the street and seeing my colleagues who are in other operas. I love the opera fans. I love Philadelphia. And the opera company is such a wonderful, humane, artistic place to work. They cast beautifully, my beautiful colleagues sitting here. It's just a number one.
So that was Gary. So Alek?
I find the atmosphere really creative and even experimental, and I find that really fulfilling as an artist to feel, at the ground level, a creation of the show, and not just of the character or the music, but really everyone in the room is contributing to making something. I think that's really cool. Daniela?
Well, they stole all my answers, but...
Well, you've worked here the most.
I have, yes. I've done 2 productions here, and I love being here. It's really a family company. You really get a warm feeling, and everybody's just really supportive of the work that we do, and really all about collaborating and, like you said, creating something together.
So what is James Darrah's approach to Semele? Is it more traditional, or has he updated the story at all?
It's both. It's maybe traditional through a modern take. It's not. It's definitely not too far from the text, and yet the ideas are fresh, and there is a spin on it. But the essence of the characters could have existed in this way all the way back in the original. So it is an update, but it's not against anything that wasn't there. So, am I correct in thinking that Gary and Alek, have you done Semele together before at Seattle Opera?
Yes, absolutely.
But
very happily.
Were you also together at Opera Omaha with James Darrah? Or just you?
No.
Neither of you?
No, I've known James for many years, but, well, not that many years. He's very young.
Yes.
But I have never worked with him before. We've worked around each other, near each other, and so this is the first time I've worked with James. But I agree, it's a very interesting modern take on the story, but very true to the text, which I think is exciting and will interest modern viewers.
Then you are also both first time working with James?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, you're lucky. I've been watching his work for a while, and it's some of the strongest work coming out.
Yes,
yeah, he's brilliant.
He's brilliant, very creative, and very cinematic. I think he started out in movies, and so he has this lens that he's looking at it through, which I think translates very well for modern audiences too.
So what do you feel the story of Semele has today to tell today's audiences? Anyone?
Well, I feel it's a moral story.
Mm-hmm.
It's a cautionary tale, but yet it's like a comedic take on it. So it's a pill that will make you better, coated in candy, so you'll enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny, insightful, dramatic, very dramatic, and yet there's a very clear moral that you must be very careful of your ambition, because unbound ambition is a dangerous thing. And we see this played out every day on the international stage. So
yes.
it's a tale for today.
And then, Alek, you're playing Jupiter and Apollo, and Danielle, you're Juno and...
I know.
I know, yes. But, so, I mean, in that one respect, you're the kind of fighting married couple in that. What is that? I mean...
We also play those roles in the opera.
But he'll be here all week.
So what do you feel is going on there, I mean, between Jupiter and Juno?
Oh, well, I mean, for anybody who vaguely knows the story, Jupiter's MO is to have these numerous dalliances, and he's always looking elsewhere to fulfill his desires, and Juno's sort of fatal flaw is that she's incredibly jealous, and she does what she can every time to eliminate woman number 730.
Who's counting?
Yeah, well, not me, certainly.
And he just goes and creates like another demigod or whatever.
Yes, and the cycle starts again. But I think one of the most interesting things that I've discovered working on this piece, and especially through James's lens, is that even though we are discussing the lives of these gods, the problems that they have are very, very human and very relatable.
Yeah, their immortality makes this sense of boredom against excitement. Mm-hmm. So there is jealousy, there is cheating on a spouse. But if you understand that they've been alive for thousands of years, this is kind of just maybe a game that they play with each other, and it doesn't have to mean as much as it does this time with Semele. This is a special one. Mm-hmm. This is a very important challenge.
Often they're more like dangerous liaisons and playing cat and mouse with off each other and on off the people they've grabbed into their circle.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. But this time it seems to be in a lot more.
Particularly
this
time.
Yeah. And because of the lengths Jupiter goes to keep Semele, all of which is for nothing once Juno figures out the trick, and I think the fact that Bacchus is the product of the relationship with Semele is really significant. All the other demigods never really became the next big thing, and then at the end, well, we're back together. Juno and Jupiter.
For the moment, yeah.
Right?
Right. So, Gary, do you have a preference for one opera style over another? I know, I've read that you frequently collaborate with the countertenor Lawrence Lipnick.
Right. He's my husband.
So you can't get away from it.
I can't.
But that's not a bad thing.
No, it's not a bad thing. No,
because that's mostly Baroque with him.
Yes. But the old 70s disco song, Love the One You're With.
Yes.
Love the One You're With. I love the Baroque style. And really, in the Baroque style, every later style has its roots. So I've done every possible style of opera you can imagine. And the last time I was here, we did War Stories, which was Monteverdi's Combattimento, which is one of the earliest operas, if you want to call it that. And then we did a modern piece by Lembit Beecher.
Yes.
composed as a companion
That was
piece.
Limbit and Hannah. Oh, I'm blanking on her name, but
We
yes,
can insert that later.
it's fine.
It's
Moscovich. Hannah Moscovich.
I love Baroque opera. It's flexible, it's exciting, it's you have a certain flexibility with the how you do the improvisation, how you do the ornamentation. So I find it a very interesting style to work in, and it's very close to my heart.
And I mean, in modern day, it gives directors who trust the material a good stepping off point to face the mirror on our times, too.
Yes, absolutely.
Because, I mean, there's so many, frequently Baroque is about princes and queens and kings and royalty, not so much about, just everyday people.
Right, although I think Alek and Daniela made a very good point. They are gods and goddesses,
right,
but actually they're just humans. They're people with the same foibles, and I think that's what Ovid's point was, and that's certainly what William Congreve, the librettist, his point was, that these are people. They may have fancy jobs, and I think Congreve was making a parody of the royal family at the time, pursuing all sorts of illicit affairs, and then making the mistress the Duchess of South Philadelphia, and building her a fabulous mansion, but going home to the wife. So I think it's history just repeating itself. So, but
that's yes. And Daniela and Matt and Alek, now we know you were married, but where did you first meet?
We met in San Francisco in the Marilla Opera program, training program for young singers in 2007. And we met doing a production of Rossini's Cenerentola. I was Cinderella and he was my Prince Charming. But
very professional.
We absolutely
during
were.
That production.
You say it like it's not true, but it's very
it's
true.
It's actually true.
It's important. I've watched enough people have relationships in productions, and you all want to run the other way.
Yes, it can be
like,
uncomfortable.
If it goes wrong, you're
Yes.
still stuck there.
Yes.
And I've done it on tours. I've watched people do it on tours. It's like, you're on this bus. You have a choice. Leave, stay on the bus, make it work.
For everybody's sake.
So a career in opera takes a lot of effort, but how do you handle, both of you, maintaining your relationship doing this?
Well, I won't speak for you, but our relationship has always been the most important part of our lives. And now we have a daughter, and so she has taken precedence, I suppose. And so it's family and then career.
And is your daughter traveling with you to the...
She does,
So is she... Well, Barry Banks' child is like 13 months, so probably a little too young.
She is 4.5.
Yes.
Almost 4.5. And she was born on the road. This is her normal, She's very adaptable, as all kids are. But we've been very lucky in that we've worked together quite a bit, sort of by accident. And people know that we work well together, generally speaking, and they do their best to help us keep our family unit together.
Do you have a favorite production other than maybe this that you've worked on together?
I don't know.
I mean, I know you just did Dido and Aeneas through Death of Classical and Greenwood Cemetery in the Catacombs.
Yes.
But Alek was the director at that point.
It was a different relationship.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I've been through that relationship with partners where they're directing my work, and it's interesting.
You know what? I have to say, from my perspective, I trust Alek and his aesthetic and his ideas so much, and I'm a very big fan of the way that he thinks about things.
Just read it from the script.
Just stick to the script, yeah. And so it wasn't really that difficult because I knew that whatever he was going to ask me to do, it wasn't going to be something that I was absolutely opposed to, and I quite enjoyed that relationship.
Me too.
Yeah.
And I mean, you were both getting used to singing in a catacombs.
Yeah.
That was, it was kind of cool.
It was.
Spiders and moisture and
Yes.
dead folks.
Dead folks.
Those were the least of your problems, the dead folks.
Yeah.
So, was that the first production that you've directed? And if not, what made you want to start directing?
That was the third production that I've directed, but the first professional production. And I think I wanted to start directing. I've always wanted to direct, I think. But I had this little voice when I would be performing that's like, well, if I had the power, what I would do with this situation, or how I would change it, And I kept on having that voice get louder and louder until I finally said, okay, I want that power, And just like Semele, what I did was I conjured Jupiter, and it's something that I find a little bit maybe not more fulfilling, but fulfilling in a different way, to tell the story, to be in control of how the story is told, rather than just my one little piece. Working with James, working with Gary is very collaborative, and so my little voice, when it wants to speak up, I feel like I can speak up, but that's not always the case, and that becomes very frustrating to save that creativity for a later date, which may never come. So that really pushed me to start directing.
Cool. And it's like, I know what pushed me to start music directing and conducting was that I was working with people who were not as good as I knew I could be, and were not using our time properly. So that was the first step. It's like, I'm going to do this better, but also that whole element of collaboration.
Yeah.
That goal of, your goal is to actually create this together, not just move here, move there, sing,
Right.
And
Do
that's
this.
the story, right?
It doesn't matter. Just
Exactly.
do it.
And then you're just a puppet, and you didn't go into this to become a puppet. And now you've been conducting. Were you conducting from the beginning, Gary, or
No, I've had a pathway to conducting. I started out as a pianist and a collaborative pianist, and then I became a chorus master and assisted a lot of conductors, and I had a similar experience to you. I thought, well, I can do this, and I was lucky that I was encouraged. I had very generous mentors that said, you should do this project, you should conduct this. I don't want to conduct this, why don't you conduct this? And that's very unusual in the conducting business, and so I was very grateful to that. And also in Baroque, a lot of my first experiences were small Baroque pieces where you play the harpsichord and you get a small orchestra around you, and so I was doing a little bit of both.
I love that best because you are part of the musical ensemble as well.
Yeah,
it's not just standing in front of everyone, which it's a bit of a remove. I always feel
right.
You're part and parcel of shifting everything. So in terms of new works, you're doing Semele, that's sort of traditional canon. What has it been your experiences? I know, Daniela, you got to do Elizabeth Cree.
Did, yes.
And what else? Is that are you growing that to be a preference now, to be able to do new works?
I love being a part of that creative process in that way. I've done two premieres now, Elizabeth Cree and JFK, and
with what amazing writers you got to
oh
work
my
on.
gosh,
Yes.
yeah, I really lucked out because they're brilliant. All four of them are brilliant people, and just to witness that rapport between composer librettist and to have them be generous enough to ask the singers that they're composing for and that they're writing for what works for their particular instrument. That's just, you can't do that. I can't ask Rossini a question. I can't say, please rewrite this, So it was an incredible privilege in that sense. And I love old music, right? I love Handel, I love Rossini, but there's something kind of magical about being the first to create something and to put your stamp on it. You don't have this legacy that can carry a lot of weight with it. You just kind of get to make it up as you go along, and that's really fun as a performer.
Alek or Gary?
I haven't. I've been close a couple times, but I've never. I've done some songs, I guess.
Right.
But I would love to.
Well, hear that, composers?
Yeah.
Call
me.
Right. Well, but you're also teaching at a school, a college, right?
Last year I was full-time faculty at University of Notre
Yeah.
Dame. This year I am not, and I may or may not be in the future.
Mm-hmm.
But it's important to me to always have time to continue performing or directing or helping to create a newly composed piece.
And Gary?
Well, I've always done a lot of new works. I actually did a world premiere here at the Barnes Foundation. We did the world premiere of Chamber Opera Biennale by Paul Richards and a local librettist, Wendy Steiner, which was great fun. And then we talked about War Stories, Lambert Beecher's piece.
And what about a Juilliard? I mean, what is your role specifically at Juilliard as on the faculty?
It's a flexible role. I coach singers. Sometimes I work with chamber music players. And then I regularly do projects. I do operas. But it's interesting to me, in the history of music, people always did contemporary music. I mean, Handel was contemporary music. And so I feel like we almost have a mission to keep doing contemporary works and growing the canon. I find that when you do a contemporary piece, you learn more about Handel and Rossini because you understand how they made their choices and what their constrictions were. So I love working on new music.
And is there more of a connection between the Juilliard opera composers and the Juilliard opera program?
Juilliard, I've been there 25 years now. I feel very grateful about that. Juilliard has changed so much. It's a more welcoming, more open community. They talk a lot now about a musician, an artist's place in the community, and that the artist must have a sense of entrepreneurship and how they relate to the community. And of course, Juilliard is a conservatory, so they have a drama department, a dance department, and a music department. So now I feel, especially with our new director, Damien Woodsell, who's a dancer and choreographer, there's a lot more flexibility and a lot more cooperation between
usually
the
it's like
departments.
they just go to their own little fiefdoms, and I lived through that in college. It's like they would just look at me, why are you over their music? Why are you over in theater? It's like, double major?
Yeah.
I'm doing both? You can?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's good to hear, and I love Damien's work, and I think he's going to do amazing things there.
Yes, I think he already has. And there's this feeling that we need to create and we need to reach out, whether it's doing Handel or a piece that was written yesterday.
So my last question is, what is next on each of your schedules? Daniela? Well, I kind of know, but you tell me.
2 weeks at home to relax and recharge, and then we are headed to Minnesota for a Barber of Seville at Minnesota Opera.
By we, she means us.
Yes. I figured that one out. And Gary?
The day we close, I go to Seattle to do Cenerentola, and that's one of my favorite operas. It's just great. In a wonderful production by Lindy Hume, where we set it in Charles Dickens' time.
Ooh,
yes,
that can work well.
Yeah, it's very nice.
Well, it's been lovely speaking to you all three, and for you taking time out of your rehearsal day.
No problem.
And thank you.
Thank you.
Chuck. Thank you.
This is Chuck Sachs for Indie Opera Podcast, and I'll be talking with tenor Jonathan Johnson, who is singing The Prince in Opera Philadelphia's O19 festival production of Sergei Prokofiev's The Love for Three Oranges. Hello, Jonathan. How are you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
So, how are you enjoying working for Opera Philadelphia?
So far, it's been fantastic. The energy in the room is exciting. The cast are filled with energy, and we're running around having a great time.
And this is your debut here?
It is.
But is this your first visit to Philadelphia, or have you been here before?
No, I've never been here before.
So your debut in the city too.
That's right.
Are you probably not now, but you'll get some chance. It's a great city.
Yeah. I've been able to go on a few little walks around where I'm staying, but I hope to explore it more.
If there's a lot of other things going besides, of course, the major historical sites, but things like the Bearded Lady Cabaret, and of course the Fringe is going on already all month. So, how are rehearsals going?
They're going pretty smoothly, actually. We have gone through the entire opera at this point, and we put up a basic skeleton first. So we went through very, very quickly. And now we're going back and refining the moments and really developing the story more.
So, who is your character, and what is the prince's journey?
I'm the prince.
Yes.
And the prince is a hypochondriac. So we meet the prince, and he is laying in bed, completely inconsolable. Nothing can make him smile or laugh, everything is bad. And so his father, the king, has gotten Trifaldino, who is
Barry Banks, yes.
the court jester, so to speak, to try and make the prince laugh. And none of it's working. So the king decides he's going to throw this big spectacle with these, two big pieces of entertainment that'll hopefully make him laugh. It doesn't work. This is into the journey of the prince now.
Yeah.
The one thing that does make him laugh is when one of the villains, if you will, of the story, Fata Morgana, shows up to the big spectacle, and Trifaldino tries to get her to go away. And in the scuffle, she's pushed over, and her blouse or her underwear or whatever is seen. And the prince has never seen anything like this because he's lived such a sheltered life. And it slowly makes him just crack up with laughter. And, the king rejoices, and, the whole court is just thrilled that the prince is now laughing. Well, Fata Morgana does not appreciate this. She curses him that he will have this insatiable love for 3 oranges, and that he'll be searching forever and ever, and that will be the end of him. And so the prince, is instantly struck with this spell and becomes obsessed with finding these 3 oranges. It's a huge turn for him because he's been laying in bed, not wanting to move or do anything, and now the king even says, what's happening? What's happening? Because he can't stop moving. It's this insatiable just want and a love of these 3 oranges. And so he hastily gets himself together and just goes. And so he goes on this journey to find these 3 oranges. And I don't know if I should keep going or if that's enough.
No. But so he's vastly changed, and then does he come to a settling point by the end, you feel?
Yes, he does.
And is that because of love, or?
I think so. I don't know how much I should go into it and how much I would.
That's fine. Come and see the opera, you'll figure it out.
That's right.
So, do you have any previous experience with this Prokofiev score at all?
No, and in fact...
So this is your role debut also.
It's my role debut, and I'd never heard of it until it came across my table.
It's another one of those, Barry Banks is going to do this in the Golden Cockerel later in Dallas, and that's another, what?
Yeah.
So how long does it normally take you to learn a new role?
It depends on, for me, the language that the role is in. This one is in English, so the language learning curve was buffered.
Luckily, you got to it when it was finally in English, because Wendy just told me she had started learning it in French, because it's originally in French.
But also done in Russian.
Yes.
I know.
Go figure.
Because the only other opera that I've done in Russian is Yensky in Onegin. Mm-hmm. And that one, I'll use that as the perfect example to answer your question. Mm-hmm. For that one, I took a good 3 weeks just separating the language from the score and the rhythms and the notes and all of that. Because as opera singers, we are storytellers and we are communicators. Mm-hmm. And so the mastery of the language is vital because it helps inform how the composer set the music. Mm-hmm. So for that, I took 2 or 3 weeks only on that. And I do like to start, whether it's German, Italian, French, with just the language, and then put it back with the music. And then learn the notes and the rhythms, and get everything to gel together, coach it. So I like to have a good month to month and a half to really live with a role and to explore it.
So is this production style very farcical? I mean, because the opera is a farce. Mm-hmm. Is it playing just flat out? Is that what the director's gone for?
No, there are elements of farce, but he really wants to tell a journey, mm-hmm. A coming-of-age story. That one of Alessandro, the director, his big point when he was giving the talk at the beginning of rehearsal period was that the prince, until Fata Morgana curses him, nothing would send him on this journey. He would not develop. Mm-hmm. So she is kind of, if you will, the evil presence, but without that, nothing would have sent the prince on this self-discovery, mm-hmm. love journey, this coming-of-age journey he goes on. Mm-hmm. So that is, for me, my through line in this, is showing that. Mm-hmm. And so, yes, there are elements of fun and pointing and laughing and those kinds of things. But there is a real story in there.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, the prince is more, in a sense, of a grounded character, even though it's within this farce that's happening, this crazy story.
Mm-hmm. And he is a spoiled brat, this prince.
Yeah. So, we know a lot of those in modern day. So, what do you feel, do you think, how does this story talk to modern day audiences in that respect?
That from time to time we encounter rough periods of our lives, or obstacles, or failures, or setbacks, and those things don't have to tear us down. They can actually send us on a journey of self-discovery of our own lives to become more centered, holistic people. And I think that's a big takeaway. Within this giant farce and all the spectacle and all of the, well, it is an opera, I guess that does make sense, kind of moments.
So, during your training, who are or were your mentors during that as you were becoming an opera singer? Is there a specific person or persons?
It takes a village, as they say. Mm-hmm. And you learn a little something different from all of your different teachers and instructors along the way.
Is there some really important advice you feel that one of them gave you about building a career in opera?
Mm-hmm. My first voice teacher, whom I studied with for undergraduate at the Townsend School of Music at Mercer University in Macon, Georgia, which is my hometown. Mm-hmm. I'm a Georgian. She said, Jonathan, it's not going to be easy, but at the end of the day, you put in the work, and then you say thank you for coming. And you give the gift. You give the gift of your voice, of the time that you spent, and try to tell the story. And that I always carry with me.
That makes the most sense.
Yeah.
Now, I read that you are touring with Chris Botti.
Yes.
What is that about?
So, Chris Botti has done collaborations with Andrea Bocelli.
Ah.
And has performed with him at the Coliseum in Rome, and so part of Chris Botti's 2-hour jazz and more, if you will, mm-hmm. program includes 2 selections that have an operatic classical stent. One is Time to Say Goodbye, Con te partirò, and the other is Nessun Dorma. And so I do both of those mm-hmm. with Chris and a violinist and the rest of the band. And it's a great show.
that would be fun. I mean, 2 songs and you're done, right?
That's right.
You might want to look into East Village Opera Company has a really wild version of Nessun Dorma that's very like world beat.
Oh, all right.
It's there's a male singer and a female singer in the group, and they do amazing. They're not really working anymore, but there are like 3 recordings out there, and it might be something that you want to hear for a different look at Nessun Dorma.
Yeah.
I love their work. It's just, like, they do an amazing When I Am Laid that it just makes it into a contemporary piece as if you could hear it on the radio.
Wow. All right.
So, all right, I know we've got to get you out for a little more break before you go back to rehearsal. So, what's next for you after this production?
After this production, I'll actually get to be home for a little while, which is rarer and rarer. But I'll be working while I'm there. I have upcoming symphonic engagements and debuts at Opera Colorado and Opera Tulsa.
What's going on at Opera Colorado and Opera Tulsa?
Opera Colorado I will be Beppe in I Pagliacci.
Okay.
And that'll be a Rolling Company debut. Mm-hmm. And then
and are they doing Pagliacci solo, or is it the pairing?
I believe it's the pairing, but check their website.
Okay.
And for Tulsa Opera, I will be Matthew in the Tobias Picker opera Emmeline. And that'll also be a company and role debut.
Is that the son, Matthew?
Yes.
Oh, yes. The Oedipus.
Yes, yes, exactly.
Wow, enjoy that. It's a gorgeous opera. Mm-hmm. It really is.
I'm very excited. I actually got to audition for Tobias for the role and just thoroughly enjoyed working with him. So I'm looking forward to seeing him again in Tulsa.
Well, exciting. Well, it's been great speaking to you, and have a great rest of rehearsals.
Thanks.
This is Chuck Sachs for Indie Opera Podcast, and I'll be talking with soprano Wendy Bryn Harmer, who is getting her Opera Philadelphia debut in the O19 festival production of Sergei Prokofiev's The Love for Three Oranges. Hello, Wendy.
Hello.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
So, what role are you singing in The Love for Three Oranges?
I am singing Fata Morgana.
Well, that sounds really wonderful.
She's not subtle.
Now, I know this is your Opera Philadelphia debut, but it is also your role debut?
It is.
Well, that's exciting.
It is. It's very exciting.
I mean, has this brought you some extra, how long does it take you normally to prepare for a role?
It completely depends on the role. It depends on the length of the role, the language the role is in. Mm-hmm. This is not a style I'm very familiar with.
And are we doing this in English?
We are doing this in English. It was written in French. Mm-hmm. It was a Russian composer written in French. I started learning it in French. They sent an English translation and then actually revised the English translation quite a bit. Mm-hmm. So it's sort of the third version. But Prokofiev wrote it in French because it debuted in Chicago. And it was not... Russian was less accessible than French.
And I know it had a bit of a history even getting on the stage in Chicago.
Yeah. But here we're doing it in English.
Yes.
Which made the process a little bit faster.
So, are you enjoying your time at Opera Philadelphia? And
I am.
Have you been to Philadelphia before?
I have been to Philadelphia. I'm a New Yorker, so I've been to Philadelphia before. It's the first time I'm working here. Mm-hmm. But I love the city. It's a lot of fun. I have a son who's kind of a history nut, so...
And I kind of look at this as a very more European kind of city. It's a walking city.
Very much so.
It reminds me a little more of Edinburgh. So, Fata Morgana is typed as the evil witch in the opera synopsis. But is she really?
I don't know. I think evil's a bit of a stretch. She's, in this particular production, she's a little bit campy. She's a vaudeville performer, basically. There is nothing subtle about Fata Morgana. Not in the way it was written, not in the way it's being directed, not in the way it's being costumed. Every entrance is fortissimo. Almost every entrance is above the staff. My very first note is a high B flat, and I hang out there for a while. To kind of...
It's like, I'm here, you can't miss me.
Yes. So she likes to direct the action, but doesn't necessarily want anyone to know she's directing the action. So I don't know, maybe I think she's a little bit of a misunderstood villain.
She's that woman behind the man.
Yes.
Making everything happen, and they don't quite know it.
And she's kind of all the things you want to say out loud and never do because you have a filter. Fata Morgana does not. She has, her wizard rival. I call him talentless. He's not professional. He's terrible at his job. All the things we wish we could say to other people, but we don't because we're good humans who have a filter. And Fata Morgana does not have that filter.
So, looking through your bio, I see you've been singing lots of Wagner and Strauss and other operas of that type. Have you had a chance to sing more comedic roles like Fata Morgana?
You know, the last time I did a comedic role, and it doesn't sound particularly comedic, was actually Vitalia in Clemenza di Tito. In the production I did, she was a bit comedic because they turned her a little into a mafia princess, and that was a lot of fun. It actually worked really well. And that's not true. I do sing Rosalind in Fledermaus, which I did at Houston Grand Opera. I'm on my way to Japan to do it later this year. And that's comedic, but I love comedy.
But Rosalind is a lyric comedic, you know.
Yeah.
She's not
but
her sister.
Depending on the production.
Right, but she's not her sister or her maid.
Right.
Which are really...
Those are the really comedic ones.
Yes.
But, you know, occasionally, depending on the production, Ariadne, I get to be... Certainly in the prologue, Ariadne can come across
because
as funny.
She's done as the diva
She's
at that
done
point,
as a bit
right.
of a diva.
Yeah.
So it just, you know, as much as the role, it actually depends a bit on the production and the way it's directed.
So, I mean, in a sense, this production kind of, you just get to have a lot of fun and a ball, you know.
Very fun.
So that's great.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it. Now, I know you noted you've been part of at least 4 young artist development programs. Can you tell us which ones, and then what do you feel that each program was able to give you?
So the first one was, I was very young. I was in my junior year of my undergraduate, and I did Music Academy of the West for 2 years, and that was hugely instrumental. Marilyn Horne really took me under her wing and kind of became my mentor.
Marilyn.
So, yeah, she's a dream. I'm still in touch with her. I adore her. So for 2 years, very early, I started as a Rossini mezzo. So Marilyn really... And Marilyn was the one who said, you are, in fact, a Wagnerian soprano, but you're all of 22, so let's hang on to this Rossini mezzo thing a little bit longer. I then did Marilla, San Francisco Opera, and Lindemann, the Lindemann Young Artist Development Program at the Met for 3 years. And that was really what solidified kind of my career path, and certainly my vocal technique and I would say my fach. I went into the Met, again, kind of a little bit of as a Rossini mezzo, but with the understanding that I was moving toward dramatic soprano, and the Met was the perfect place for me to make that change, because I had some really good guidance.
So, in that terms, who are your favorite mentors throughout your training and career? You've mentioned
certainly Marilyn Horne. Certainly Marilyn Horne has been with me really from the beginning. James Levine, from my young artist times at the Met, was very instrumental. Ken Noda at the Met, I've stayed in very close touch with him. Bill Schumann as a teacher and mentor. Maggie Lattimore, she's a mezzo that I have a huge amount of respect for, also as a teacher and a coach. But, you know, just Marilyn, it all kind of falls back to Marilyn, was really the first.
I mean, I know she broke the mold of what mezzos and could do in the hand rolls and brought operas back specifically for her. So I guess that would be a good one to be pushing you out into really
different repertoire.
Different repertoire and how to conceive a role.
Right. And also just with the understanding that Marilyn, I don't have a very fast-moving career, but I've had a very long... I started singing professionally at about 22, and I have a solid 20 or 30 years yet in my fach. And Marilyn did that too. Marilyn, more than almost anyone I know, was able to, because of her solid technique, let a career marinate for a little bit. She did not grab at every role that was thrown at her, and I've had the luxury of being able to do the same.
And also the mentorship of Marilyn don't do that.
Yeah, I don't
know
have any
there are
interest
young
in a 20-year
singers that
career.
come out and they're shoved to those roles and we don't know them anymore.
No, we don't. I know a lot of people who made a Met debut and never came back. I had a very minor is not the correct word, but my Met debut was as a bridesmaid in Nozze di Figaro, which is not a particularly exciting or flashy role, but I've had over 100 performances at the Met ever since. So in increasingly big roles. And so when people, especially young singers, ask, you know,
what would
about
be your favorite role that you've sung at the Met?
At the Met, I would say my favorite role, ooh, that's tough.
Choosing between Wagner or Strauss or...
Probably a bunch of the Wagner. I would say Valkyrie, the old Otto Schenk production, just holds a special place in my heart. particularly because of the Valkyrie I was with. These were women who were seasoned Wagnerians and seasoned Valkyrie, who really taught me how to hold a spear and a shield. And I've had, a lot of productions since, and a lot of roles since.
And you're in the new Lepage.
Yeah, I've done the new Lepage ring now twice.
Then I must have seen you in it, because I was
Freya, I was Gatruna, I was Gerhilda. At the Met I sing Linda, Freya, Gatruna. This past season, instead of Gatruna, I did Third Norn, which I absolutely love. I love the opening of Götterdämmerung.
And how is it working with that set?
That set, I've been with her. She's a grande dame. I've decided the set is a lady. She's a beast, but no one but the Met could handle it the way that they do. Those craftsmen backstage are incredible. The stagehands, the technicians, the lighting designers, the team there made it doable. The first time we did it back in, I think it was 2010, there were a lot of kinks to work out, and they did. This last time we did it, it was a lot more seamless. It was much quieter, the machine. And I felt like, all in all, it worked better and it made a lot more sense. But that is really a set that I wish could be installed somewhere. It would work so beautifully in a festival situation where it's not being moved on and off the stage. The trickiest part, I think, about the Met was that they needed to move it every night to put Traviata in or Bohème or something, and to move that set means you have to recalibrate everything. It's such a technical piece.
Right. It's why Broadway has a sit down if they redo the theater, like what was Great Comet.
Right.
I mean, it sits there. They're not trying to switch it.
So I wonder somehow if the Met could possibly do the Lepage ring again in a festival setting at the end of a season. And just say nothing is happening but the ring for the next 6 weeks. And I don't know, because I think that it would be a much more successful set. When you're not moving it around. And the amazing men and women backstage working on it would be a lot less frustrated.
So going back to your mentors, besides Marilyn, you talked about, what would you say is the most important advice that some of your other mentors gave you, and why?
I would say one of the biggest pieces of advice was to not take criticism from somebody I wouldn't have gone to for advice. That was I was concerned about a particular criticism I was getting from someone in the business I didn't really know, but who I thought mattered. And I brought it up with one of my mentors at the Met, and they said, would you have gone to this man for advice? And I said, well, no, of course not. He's not on my team. And they said, well, then why are you bothering what he thinks about you critically? It doesn't really matter. If it's not someone you would go to for advice, don't worry about their criticism. Let it go.
Is there anyone that surprised you that you felt you trusted and their advice was not the right thing?
No, there really wasn't. Mainly because I always knew there were people suggesting I should go to Europe and do a fest contract so that I could sing all my roles. Because most of my roles aren't done often in America. So if I went to Europe, and I've always instinctually known that was not a good fit for me. Festing in Europe was not a good idea. A lot of women my age who've done that, or women with my voice who went in their late 20s came back sounding 10 years older than they are, because they were singing roles too soon, too frequently, and not enough Mozart in between. So the greatest blessing, I think, of taking my career slowly and in the way I did was that I have sung a whole lot of Mozart between every Wagner, and that's kept me nice and flexible, I think.
Good. So I actually just have one more question. So what is next for you?
After this, I go back to the Met. I'm covering Pique Dame, which I love. I'm covering Lisa.
Okay.
I love her. Also working on Katya Kabanova there this season.
Oh, that's great. I'm going to see that.
That's going to be great.
You'll be there with Daniela Mack.
Yes.
You're here, but not working together.
We're not working together here. We've worked together before, and looking forward to working with her again.
What was the work you did before with Daniela?
You know what? I honestly don't know. There are so many of us that sort of just run in the same circles. Alek, her husband Alek Shrader, and I did flute together at least once at the Met. Daniela and I have not been on the same production. No, we were on the same production at the Met. Rusalka. I was covering Rusalka, the role of Rusalka, and she was singing the servant boy, I think.
Yes.
So that's the only time we've worked together at the Met, but we've worked together. I honestly cannot remember.
And is that the new production of Rusalka?
That's the new one. In the old production, I did The Foreign Princess, which I love.
Wow. Well, I'll look forward to seeing that, and forward to seeing you as Fatima Garna and then in Kata Kabyanova.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you for listening to this special edition of Opera Fix. You can hear more about O19 Festival in Part 2, and please check out our YouTube channel for other opera coverage. This is Chuck Sachs.